Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Second Act Actors. I'm your host, Dr. Janet McMordie, and I'm still a medical doctor simultaneously trying to pursue a career in acting. My guest this week is Richard Comeau. Richard is one of my near and dear friends. He is an actor. He's also Canada's first Indigenous fight director, which is extremely cool. He is also currently in 1939, which is a production with Canada Stage. It is currently playing right now in Toronto. Go see it. He's also coming off of 2 successful seasons at Stratford. He is, always an actor. He's always been an actor. And I'm always so impressed with people who just knew what they wanted to do immediately when they were into this crazy world, and then they just did the darn thing. He has an incredible life story to tell. I'm so excited for you to hear it. Please enjoy the incredibly talented Richard Comeau. Tell me your story. How did you get into this crazy business?
Great question.
Thank you.
In high school, I was a kid with zero drive because I wanted to become a professional baseball player. And then I moved to a town with no baseball. So dreams dashed. And then I wanted to become a pilot. And my eyesight was so bad that the doctor was like, yeah, maybe you should rethink that. So I had no idea what I was going to do. And then I was in grade 12 physics class, and a tiny little lady with crazy hair knocks on the door, asks us to talk to me outside in the hallway. I had never met this woman. I'd never seen her before in my life. And she said, "Hey, I'm Mrs. Kunkel. Do you know where the drama room is?" I said, "No." So she said, "Okay, you're going to go down the stairs, hang a right, go all the way down to the end of the hall. It's the second last door on the left." And I said, "Okay." She's like, "All right, great. I'll see you after school." I was like, "What?" Go down the stairs, hang a right, go all the way to the end of the hall, second last door on the left. I was like, "Yeah, no, I understood that. What are you talking about?" She said, "Oh, you're auditioning for my play." I said, "Okay, lady." And she said, "Yeah, so I'll see you after school." And I was like, "Yeah, whatever." And she's like, "No, I'll see you after school." Like, "Yeah, maybe." She's like, "Look me in the eyes and tell me I'll see you after school." And I was like, "Okay, I will." And I auditioned, and I got the lead in Fame. And that's how I was like, okay, I guess I have somewhere to go from here. And I enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun. And then I went to school for theater, and went to Laurentian University. And then after that, I went to George Brown for a year. And I've done a whole bunch of other stuff in between and after and all that fun stuff. And here I am today.
What that is, I was like, is this woman a witch? Like, that's what it sounds like, like here comes this sorceress who's like going to take you away. What did you ever ask her? Did she say why?
I did ask her. I said, "Yeah, why me?" And she said, "You were recommended by the higher ups." Also very
Even
witty.
creepier. Yeah.
But she apparently, because in I think grade 10, I did a book report, but it wasn't a book report. It was a movie report. And for whatever reason, I did it on Batman Forever, the movie. And I did a sketch, in which I played all the characters. There was a lot of baby powder involved. And it was a lot of fun. It was funny. I got good marks, but apparently that English teacher recommended me for the part. So,
Oh my gosh.
she saw something in me I didn't know I had.
And okay, because correct me if I'm wrong, you have to sing in Fame, yes?
Yeah.
Had she heard you sing? Did she know you were a singer?
Yeah, I sang a little bit in high school. I did some, there was something called a musical review, and I had done, and I think the last one I had done was like Canadian hits. So I sang Born to Be Wild, in that, and it was a lot of fun. And of course, I dressed up for the part. My dad used to, ride motorcycles and stuff like that. So I borrowed all his leathers, and yeah, so I made a scene out of it. And yeah, so people have heard me sing. Um, and yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Ha have you ever gone back to talk to Mrs. Kunkel, which is the best name ever, to be like, hey, look at what I did, and it was all because of you?
You know, I ended up doing some children's theater, and we went back to, and this was in Fort Francis, Ontario, so all the way northwestern Ontario. And I went back to that theater because we were doing some children's theater, but she was no longer there, and I have no idea how to get a hold of her.
Mm, hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty amazing. I think like that's the story that you hear or that you hear about that happening to somebody, and it usually gets made into a film. And you're like, oh my gosh, there was that one person who believed in me, and then that changed the course of my career, my life, basically. Like that's so cool.
Yeah, like I said earlier, up to that point, I had no idea what I wanted to do. And it's like a couple of English teachers got to talking and spoke to this drama teacher and was like, hey, try this guy. And I fell in love. I took drama after that. So from like a theater kid standpoint, I came into it a little bit later because I was graduating high school when I finally got into it.
Were you a performative kid growing up? Like, did you like to perform?
Yes. Um, I was also kind of a little bit of the class clown.
Mm.
Um, so I like to get the reaction out of people and teachers. Whether or not it was positive or negative, it didn't really matter because I got a reaction. Um, so yeah, and then I still remember like when I was somewhere around 10 years old, like I would perform for the family. I would just do stupid stuff like look at me, right? But then we ended up doing, it was our Christmas party with a bunch of family and friends, and I remade the song like the 12 Days of Christmas, and I used different things from around the house, and I had like a show and tell and a Kelly Gruber jersey. Um, so a lot of baseball stuff because I was super into baseball at that time. But yeah,
That's
and
awesome.
everybody loved it, and then it became a thing where every Christmas or New Year's, I was expected to do something. So I would always perform for families at least once a year.
Was that ever told that you could do this as a career path when you were growing up, saying, you can be an actor? Did you know that?
No, not
No.
really.
Mm.
When I told my family that, okay, I think I want to do this, like they were super supportive. But I was never told, hey, you should be an actor or you should be a performer, at least not from my recollection.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah,
What brought you to, did you take theater at Laurentian?
I did.
Okay. And then you went to George Brown, and that's obviously like the theater school. Um, Tell me about theater school. I've heard mixed things from theater people. Some say it was the best years of their lives. Some say it was the worst. Some say it's necessary. Some say you don't need to do it at all. Well, how was your experience?
Well, I don't necessarily agree that you have to go to theater school to be a theater actor. However, they do teach you a lot of different styles and genres, and they do teach you a lot of the techniques required to perform properly in these types of things. So I do cherish all the time that I did in theater school and the training that I got, because I mean, in the long run, it's all been very helpful. Whether or not it was something that I agreed with,
Hmm.
or whatnot, because I like the stuff that didn't work for me, and okay, I'll just push you aside because that doesn't work for me. Um, but then the stuff that works for me, I'm like, all right, I'm going to put that in my pocket. And then over the years, my pockets have been growing exponentially because I keep finding more and more things in my training and the doing, and I find that this stuff really works for me. So I'm going to incorporate that in the next thing that I do.
Hmm. Hmm. Something that I've noticed that I know I wouldn't say, I was about to say struggle with, but that's not the right word. That's a very negative word. But maybe something I've kind of really clocked over the last couple of years when people go to theater school, and like you and I went to go see Hamlet in Hyde Park, and you knew a lot of the people who were there. You gone to theater school with them. Like, oh, right. Like theater school gives you a crew of people, a support system. Like, I think that's where I find a community already inherent in like my graduating class at George Brown. The same thing happened in medical school, right? Like I have like my cohort of medical school classmates who are like, we've trauma bonded, we're friends forever. Where, you know, if you haven't gone to theater school and now you're trying to pursue something, yeah, I don't think you need to go to theater school for like the base knowledge, but there's got to be an advantage, maybe question mark, to having to graduating with a community of people who can help you out. Was that your experience?
Yeah, I think so. I find that you develop this really great community where there's just a lot of support.
Mm.
So, like going to university, I found that I bonded so well with a lot of my peers, and to this day, I'm still friends with a bunch of them, and we still talk. I was fortunate to, even after 20 years of since I graduated from Laurentian earlier this year, I got to perform with one of the people that I went to school with in Laurentian, which was fantastic. And it was like we never parted. We were just best friends. That bond was still there. Um, yeah, and I just think the support is there because, like you said, the trauma bonding. Yes, there is some trauma in theater school. At least in my experience, I had a little bit of trauma in theater school. Uh, but we're all going through it together. We all know exactly what we're feeling, what we're going through, all these obstacles and feedback that we're getting. Everybody's getting something similar. So we know how to relate to each other, and we're able to bond that way and support each other through these hard times.
Hmm. So tell me about, you're in theater school and then you graduate and then you get thrust into the real world. What did that look like for you? What's been the journey till now?
Up in Sudbury, when I was at Laurentian, I was like one of the best.
Mm.
And that is, small fish in a small pond. I don't know. And then came to Toronto and realized, oh, I'm not the best anymore. So I had to work a lot harder. And it was just really overwhelming and humbling because yeah, I was used to, auditioning for something and I would get it. And then I come into Toronto and it's like, oh, there's a lot of people that kind of look like me and I'm not getting this stuff. So there's probably a reason to that. I need to work harder.
Mm.
Yeah,
Mm.
it was really a humbling experience though, especially like when I started to do like TV and film auditions and whatnot. And it's like I've never been faced with that amount of rejection in my life before. Then getting into it, it's like, oh, okay, so I'm not going to get everything I auditioned for.
How do you combat that feeling? Like what keeps you going?
At first, um, it was a lot of sadness,
Mm.
um, a little bit of a depressive state because, like I said, I was kind of used to, getting what I wanted when it came to acting and whatnot. But then I quickly got over that because I realized, oh, so this is how this is. So I just had to work harder, take classes, and just keep going out there with a positive attitude and not worry about the results. I found that more times than not, when I auditioned and I thought I had a really good audition, I wouldn't book it.
Hmm.
But then those ones that I was like, oh man, that was shit, or that was crap. Um, those are the ones that I seem to book or get callbacks, and
Huh.
really confusing um, for a lot of reasons. But it brings me back to one of the things when I was at George Brown. We had a teacher. Her name is Dixie Seidel, and she was doing one of our Shakespeare scenes, and I was working at it really hard. It's like, this is not working. Why isn't this working? And all these thoughts are in my head, and I'm just like trying to work really hard. Oh, what's going on? And then afterwards, she's like, that was the best I've ever seen you perform. I'm like, what? That doesn't make sense. And then we dissected it a little bit, and in the end, she just said, it didn't feel like you were acting, did it? I was like, wow.
Huh.
So that's been part of my journey into a theater actor is um, not trying too hard, because if you try too hard, it's false.
Mm.
And just really focus on the lines, the text, your relationship with your partners and whatnot.
Mm. Do you notice a difference between film and TV auditions and theater auditions?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, right now, where the industry is at, I find that the theater auditions are starting to become more prominent as a in-person thing again,
Mm-hmm.
which is fantastic. I always love that because I love being able to get feedback right away or redirects right away, which is always fun. And if you get a redirect, I mean, not all the time, but sometimes when you get a redirect, it's like, okay, they see something. Um, and then other times they won't give you a redirect, and maybe they just saw what they needed to see.
Mm.
But I find that what a big difference for me, like I did a lot of commercial auditions when I was doing the TV and film stuff, and very few TV or film auditions. It was mostly all commercials. And I found that the biggest thing was just like, it was almost all improvised. All those auditions were improvised. Just go, okay, you're in a cab, you're going to a club, and go. And I had no idea what to do. And until I took some improv classes, and I was like, oh, that's why I didn't get the part. And that's probably why they didn't get the part, because of me. Because I blocked them and they had nowhere to go.
Interesting.
Huh.
What got you interested in fight direction?
That is a great question. So in university, I did a show called The Monument. It's a 2-person show. And there's a stage direction in there that says, she slaps him till the sun comes up. Something along those lines. And I was doing this with one of my professors, and we rehearsed. Like, I'd never even heard of the words stage combat put together. So I had no idea what it was. And, me being a young pup, and, my ego's a little bit higher because I'm in theater school and I'm pretty darn good. I was like, okay, you can slap me on the face. So we rehearsed with some slaps on the face. Everything was good. And then opening night comes up, and our adrenaline is up at its peak, like 150%. And that moment comes up where she smacks me. And boy, did she ever clock me. I immediately went down to my knees, which I never did in rehearsals. I saw stars. I got back up. She kept slapping me. And it turns out she gave me a concussion.
Oh my God.
And I don't blame her at all. However, when I went to George Brown, we studied with Fight Master Simon Fawn. And one of the first things he said was, no contact to the face ever, for all of these reasons. I was like, well, that would have saved me some headaches.
Literally and figuratively.
Yeah. So I, from there, after I was out of George Brown, I reached out to Simon. He gave me the name of Daniel Levinson at Rapier Wit. who I believe you just did an interview with. And I started taking classes there and I started training there. And it was so fulfilling, so rewarding. I found another passion within this acting umbrella that I was able to really get into. And I ended up taking about kind of like a 10-year hiatus from acting or actively pursuing acting. Like if something came up, like I did a couple commercials or little films and a little bit of theater here and there, but I wasn't actively looking for that stuff because I was focused on my training. I wanted to become a certified fight instructor with Fight Directors Canada. And so I kept doing that and doing that. And 10 years later, I finally got my certification. And I'm proud to say I'm the first Indigenous person to be a certified fight instructor with Fight Directors Canada. So, and that's it. I'm so proud of that title. And like, obviously I hope more people, who are Indigenous can get into this like I did.
Mm-hmm.
But so that was part of my journey. But I also found that like one of the things I observed was that stage combat makes you a better actor, made me a better actor for sure.
Huh.
And in my opinion, it makes people a better actor. Because I don't know how many times you've gone to see a play or something like that, and it just looks like two talking heads talking at each other, and they don't seem to be in the same scene, but they're doing the right lines. I've seen that a lot, and I mean, like when you see like a lot of really great productions, you don't see that much with these higher quality actors or these veterans and stuff like that. But I've seen a lot of, especially with younger people, a lot of people who they don't seem to be listening to each other. They don't seem to be talking or connecting with each other. And stage combat really, really kind of forces you to do that. You have to have that conversation with your partner. Why? You might get stabbed if you don't. So it's all about safety, but it's also that connection, and you're really in those moments. And if you're not in those moments together, then shit can go down and not in a positive way. So it really forces you to stay in those moments and really be present and be with your partner. And you're working for them, not just yourself.
It's very improv, not in the way that like I'm going to improvise my fight with you, but the theory, right? Of I'm here with you trying to make you look good. And
right?
The idea also is the fact that there's such a trust there that they are doing the same for you.
Yeah. Trust is a huge component when it comes to stage combat. If you don't trust your partner, then things not going to work well. And you have to be able to trust them, and you have to be able to go into the situation with an open mind and open heart, so that way you can come together as a cohesive component to tell this story further.
Once you got your certification, was the thought, okay, now I'm actually going to pursue a career in fight direction, or I just want to do acting, or is there a blend of both? What are you doing now?
I think it was a blend of both. It was, now I'm not just focused on one thing. Now I have a couple of different avenues in which I can utilize to further my career. As soon as I became a certified fight instructor, I started booking acting gigs and fight direction gigs. Well, I mean, I was fight directing prior to that certification, and I was teaching prior to that certification. However, the certification means that my pupils, my students, can also certify. Before they couldn't do that. They just got some training. But as soon as I became a certified fight instructor, I was like, all right, let's do this. Now I can put 100% into this career. And I started booking gigs for both fight direction, for acting, teaching, a whole bunch of different avenues in this thing. And I'm very happy to say that it's worked out. I can't say that for everybody. But it's been really good for me, because if I'm not acting, I have the opportunity to do some fight direction or teaching. And if I'm not doing that, I have opportunities to act. That being said, I will say that acting is my main priority. I want to be on stage. Um, that's where I find the most joy, is to be on stage. And I've always said, like, people always ask, what's your favorite part about acting? And I've always said, it's being able to evoke an emotional response out of an audience.
Hmm.
If they love me or my character, if they hate my character, if I make them cry, I make them laugh, all gold for me. I mean, I'm able to do that. I'm able to bring that up in them, and so I love doing that. And if I get to wield a sword in the process, boom, 100% the best thing in the world.
Speaking of wielding swords, as soon as I said that, I was like, did you wield a sword in Stratford? I wanted to ask about Stratford, because to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, and I apologize to all the theater people in Canada if they hear this, but like, to me, Stratford is like Olympics. Like, you can't get higher than that in the Canadian theater world. This is what we would strive for. What was that like, getting that phone call that you got into Stratford, something that I'm assuming was like, it's the dream, right?
Yeah, it was surreal. It came at the right time, and I don't mean that for selfish reasons. I mean that for my family. So rewind a little bit. I auditioned in, I think it was early November, end of October of 2021. And my niece unfortunately passed away in November. And I was up north. I was up in Sudbury with my family, trying to help everybody cope with this tragic loss, because it's obviously not fun when you lose anybody you love, right? And trying to keep my sister afloat. And we decided we were going to do facials. So she had all the whatever it is on her face, and I was prepping my face, and then I got the phone call, and on the caller ID it said Stratford Festival, and I went, oh my god! And I ran into my mom's bedroom, because my mom was with my sister, and both my mom and my sister are standing at the door waiting. And I got the phone call, and they say, we'd like to offer you the part of Joseph. And I'm getting emotional now. Because my family was there, and we needed a positive in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And we were fortunate to get it. And like, seeing the look on my mom's face and my sister's face, specifically my sister, and seeing how happy and joyed she was to see her brother succeed. And it was able to take her mind off of losing her daughter for that little bit of time. And that meant so much to me. And then fast forward to the following year, like, another piece of tragedy, right? My dad was diagnosed with cancer.
Mm-hmm.
I swear, like, Stratford just knows when to send offers, because the next day I got an offer for my second season. And I
Oh
would
my God.
tell my dad, and he was so thrilled. And also the rest of the family, because now we're dealing with this other thing with my dad a year later, but we're also, everybody's so happy, and they have a smile on their face for at least another moment, which is incredible. And I mean, like, you never know what's going to happen in this business, but it was, I feel like the timing of both of those offers they couldn't have come at the right time, because everybody needed to pick me up from this garbage that life shot at us. And everybody was able to have a moment of joy and smiles and hugs and appreciation for some little things. And it was incredible. Almost all theater actors, I think, being able to perform on a Stratford stage is one of their biggest goals. That definitely was for me. when I got invited to audition for a show at Stratford, I was beyond thrilled, and also crapping my pants a little bit. Um, and I was able to audition for it, and I ended up getting the role at, I would say, the perfect time for me and my family, because everybody needed a pick me up, something positive. So, um, but that being said, like as much as I love Stratford, Stratford's not the only thing out there. So audition for other shows, other companies, like Shaw Festival is huge too. And one day I'll work at Shaw as an actor. I've fight directed there, but not as an actor. Um, but yeah, so even if you're an actor and you haven't been to Stratford or worked at Stratford, that's fine because you're still probably working or you're working towards something. So I would say that's the be all and end all. However, it is pretty big.
Yeah.
I remember when I was telling my nephew, um, and well, first of all, telling my family, and they were like, "That's good, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's kind of like the Broadway of Canada," is how I explained it. They're like, "Ooh, I know Broadway." And then I was trying to tell my nephew, and he was like, "Bill, no, you don't get it. It's big." And he's like, "Okay." I was like, "Okay. Imagine I was just drafted into the NHL," and he was like, "Whoa." He understood that reference, and I was like, "Yeah, that's how I feel."
So what was it like? Do you remember your like first time stepping out on a Stratford stage? Was it as amazing as I am just hoping it would be?
Yeah, it was great. I got to be in two productions there, one of which I was one of the lead characters, which was fantastic. And we worked at the Studio Theater, which is actually their smallest theater.
It's
But
lovely.
I learned so much, and I feel like that was a really great way to start it. I'm not on the big stage. I get to start small and like try to work myself up. Um, but it was really great because I learned so much. There were a lot of veteran actors that I watched and observed and saw how they did it. They also supplied coaching there, like voice coaches and dialect coaches if you need it, and Alexander techniques and stuff like that. And the voice coaches were really great with me and for me um because it was a thrust stage. So there are people on three sides of you and they're all raked up. And it was a matter of like, when I'm acting or if I'm on stage and I'm just delivering my stuff straight out, all those people up there in those high seats, they are not being able to connect with you because they can't see your eyes. So you have to bring up your horizon. You have to start acting a little bit more chest out, head up a little bit. So that way everybody has an opportunity to connect with you and see what you're doing, which is one of the biggest things that I learned there. And wow, has it ever helped me since? Because now I have that where is the horizon thing in the back of my mind for any theater that I play at.
That's so interesting. Yeah. And so that was your first season at Stratford, yes?
That was, yeah.
And then you got to go back for a second?
I did get to go back for a second. It was a lot of fun. That time I was on the festival stage, which is the big stage,
the big one.
and I got to perform alongside a whole whack of people that I admire and love, and I was in awe, being able to work specifically on King Lear because I was on stage. I was a non-appearing understudy in Much Ado About Nothing. But I did get to go on a lot, and I did get to perform with some amazing, incredible actors. But in King Lear, I was there with Paul Gross and Andre Sills, and like there's so many that I was in awe of, and I was able to actually perform with them. And then sometimes I got to go on as my understudy track, which meant I actually got to speak with Paul Gross, and he got to shoot me down, which was fantastic.
Do you have any advice for anyone who is interested in, and I'm going to be pretty specific with this, who's interested in pursuing more theater? Like they're trying to go from film and TV into theater. Do you have any advice?
I think the biggest thing is when it comes to TV and film, the voice, a lot of people talk really softly because they have mics all around them. And I find that a lot of the people that I've observed who come from a TV film background going into theater, they speak very softly and they're not really projecting or filling the room with their voice. I think that's one of the main things that I've observed, and I feel like maybe they should talk to a coach, go seek some training in that sense to really amplify their voices and really find where that voice sits to try to fill a 250 person theater. Because if only it's great because those first three rows, if they can hear you, they're loving it. But everybody else, they get lost and they don't get to experience all the rest of the stuff.
That's great advice. Has there been anything that has surprised you about this industry?
Yeah, I feel like the amount of people it takes to put a production up is fascinating. And like the smaller the production, obviously there's less people because I think it's mostly about the budget, right? Because everybody deserves to get paid. But then the larger the production, there is so many people. Like when we were at Stratford, there's, you have your group of designers, lighting, set, and costume. And then like under costume, you have, a dozen other people who are actually working on these costume pieces and maybe even more. And then there's like wigs and cutters and bijoux. So all the jewelry and stuff like that. There are all these different departments. I was like, wow, there's so many people, and you don't even get to meet half of them. You get to meet a couple people in the fitting, but then there's like another 5 other people that are working on your pants. So it's crazy how many people it takes to put a production up. I've always had a respect for everybody who works in a production. I feel like everybody should. There are a lot of people who think they're bigger than the riches and they don't treat everybody as equals. Well, I'm not that guy. Anytime I meet someone, I'm like, all right, you're super cool. And you're also invaluable to what's happening. And you have to realize that you as the performer are not the be all and end all that's going to make this production. Because if you didn't have all of those dozens and dozens of other people in the background making you look good, you would just be a puppet on a string, right? And you're not doing anything.
Yeah, I think it's such an interesting thing that I didn't know, obviously, when I got into this industry, but it's a thing that I really love because for the most part, these are people who are so happy to be doing what they love to do because a lot of the time, and it's a lot of the time, it's similar to why we love acting. It's because they are doing a career that is deemed whimsical. They are props, they're sets, they're artists, they're jewelers, they're costume designers, they're people who have probably at some time in their life been told by someone being like, that's not a real job. Good luck. That's for somebody else to be doing. That's a very whimsical thing. Go be an accountant. No offense to accountants. Or go be a doctor. Let's offend myself. But for the most part, when I've encountered people like this, they're people who are so excited to be doing what they love to do. And they're usually pretty high, like top level. And they're all working together to put this production on. And it's like the best group project in school where you're like, everyone is contributing. This is so awesome. There isn't that one idiot being like, I'm just here for the grade. I think it's so rare. And I think that the community of that, putting a production on, is what I think keeps me here.
Yeah, there's a huge sense of pride within
Ugh.
that entire community, which I
Mm.
find incredible because like when I first started doing some theater, of course, like being a young guy, I was very like, okay, it's about me. But I did respect everything that everybody did. But it wasn't until later on in my career that I realized and recognized how much pride everybody takes in what they do.
Mm.
And the show opens and everybody is thrilled. That guy that gives you the basket of fruit that you have to bring onto stage, like that guy is super excited because he had a hand in this. And then like there's no small parts. I totally believe that there are no small parts both on and off the stage. Everybody contributes and everything that they contribute essentially helps make this story unfold for an audience.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, do you have any favorite moments from your time on stage or funny stories?
I'm sure I can think of a couple. um, the the first one that comes to mind is I was up in Sudbury, Sudbury Theater Center, doing 1939 earlier this year. And 1939 is about the resilience of students at a residential school. And there's a moment where my character um, has had enough with the charade that we're trying to do. And he yells, "Wait!" And everybody stops. And that's when, I show everybody that I'm taking a stand. I don't want to do this. And it's also risking a lot for me because, I mean, at residential schools, kids who took a stand, outcomes were not very good.
Mm.
And I, I did that. And we just started working with sound. And I'm laughing already. So it's this deep moment, very passionate moment. Everybody's like, "What's going on?" Wait! Everybody stops and looks at me, and the stage manager presses the cue. It's the biggest fart sound you've ever heard. And she was so embarrassed, but everybody laughed so hard. We were rolling on the ground. We didn't get back to work for at least 15 minutes because we were laughing so hard, but it also came at the right time because
Mm.
I think for all of us, because of the intensity of the content and the emotional responsibility you had to have to just be in this play, it was starting to weigh on us because like we're not only that, but like trying to make sure our lines are right, trying to make sure our blocking's right, and all of the stuff is going good. And then we had this moment of just sheer joy and release. We all laughed and we remembered, oh yeah, this is why we do this because it is actually fun.
Mm-hmm.
And we
Mm-hmm.
had a lot of fun. And I think that's probably like the thing that's sticking in my mind right now. That's just so great, and it was so fun, and it was just needed.
Oh. Well, I might know the answer to this question, but do you have anything you are looking forward to coming up?
You might know the answer. Actually, yes. So, Canadian Stage is, I think it's the first show of the season. In September, we're doing 1939, in which I'm going to reprise my role as Joseph Summers, which I did in Sudbury. And that is the role that I did in Stratford. That was my first season at Stratford. That was the role that brought me there. Super excited. It's also a co-production with Belfry Theatre in Victoria, BC. So we open on the 19th of September and then we run until mid-October. We have a week hiatus and then we fly out to BC, the entire cast, and we get to perform it on the West Coast as well. So I'm super thrilled about that.
That's so awesome. And if my timing is correct, this episode will be released during your run. So everyone go see it.
Come see it.
Yeah,
tickets are on sale now.
Tickets are on sale now. Literally, they are right now when we're recording this, August 2nd. And they are right now when this will be released in the future. Do you have any final words of wisdom or advice?
Take stage combat. Take an improv class. I find that like improv was super beneficial, especially for film and TV. It makes you a better actor as well as stage combat. I feel like another piece of advice, like, I don't even know if I'm, the one to be able to give advice, but whatever, I'll give some anyways. Another thing is recognize that you are just a tiny cog in this machine that is trying to move forward. Every single piece is just as important as the other. And if one is faulty or doesn't work properly, the entire thing won't work properly. So just recognize that you're not more important than anybody else. That's doing this. That's part of this process.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And thank you, Richard, for being my guest this week. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to chat with me and chat with my listeners. I so appreciate it. Y'all, go see 1939 if you're in the Toronto area. It is currently playing at Can Stage. It is an incredible production. It was at Stratford. Now it's in Toronto. If you're in the BC area, it's going to be on tour. It's going to Victoria coming up, I believe, kind of November-ish time. Definitely go check it out. And support theater, y'all. Support the theater. Support theater people. Support Canadian theater. Support indie theater. Do it. Go see a show. Go see a show? I don't know. Go see a show, go see a show, go see a show, do it. I hope you'll all tune in next week for another episode of Second Act Actors. Bye.